I swear, Nub, you can't just eat all my food. With my diabetes, I have a very specific diet I need, and I will swing my swinging stick at you. Hey, Nub is your left hand, Rodigus. You aren't free from sin. Stop grabbing my stuff. Nub can't bite my stuff if you don't grab it.
Yeah, Rodigus, don't go grabbing stuff.
I will get that stick, Nub.
Belly?
You know what? You're right, Belly. Let's start talking about the subject this week. The actual use of the Chaos Daemons table rules. Chaos Daemons have 2 army rules, one of which giving them the ability to join Chaos factions, but is the only reinforcements faction that has an extra sub-rule to this. Most reinforcements, like knights or agents, can bring so units dependent on the faction and the points of the army. For agents, they can bring 1 unit and 1 character per 1k points in the Imperial Army. I usually recommend an Inquisitor and Inquisitorial agents. Knights can bring 1 full-size knight or 3 armigers to an Imperial army, no matter the size of the army. Now, it used to be that all factions with reinforcements options would follow similar rules, but now each one is different, but that's another thing entirely. The first army rule we'll be talking about is Daemon's Reinforcements rules. Daemon Pact is a massive list of sub-rules, but I'll give the nitty-gritty of it. For a Chaos faction, you can bring 1/4 of the army max points as Daemons. You are restricted with your Chaos sub-faction, whether it's Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Slaanesh. For example, World Eaters can only bring Khorne Daemons, Death Guard, the Nurgle ones, and such. If you have Lucius the Eternal as your warlord, you can only bring Slaanesh Daemons. But then there's another rule. For every non-battle line unit you bring, you must have a battle line unit too. This is a recent addition to the rules, which most theorize it's to counter the fact that every Death Guard army will bring a ton of Nurglings, but this rule doesn't affect that build since Nurglings are a battle line. It was probably put in place to affect Thousand Suns mostly, with Flamers and Exalted Flamers having Torrent type weapons, which always hit but may not wound. I know this guy had a bit of a hilarious busted rule in 9th edition, which they fixed fast, but I could see it being a bit jank with 1,000 Suns. But as their own army, they've got Shadow of Chaos. This works similar to the Canoptic Court Detachment Rule, but slightly different. The area it affects is the same. Their deployment, no man's land if you capture over half the objectives, and enemy deployment if you capture over half the objectives there. The sub-rules for this army are Demonic Manifestation, which lets you pass battle shock tests easier and recover wounds. Battle line units can regain models as well. Enemies in the area take 1 less to their battle shock test. This is debatable, good or bad. Battle shock can be rather worthless, really. With a stratagem that can ignore it, many character abilities making the 0 objective being 1/2 instead, but the detachment actually expands on this. Their detachment is based around Deep Strike, which everything in Daemon's army gets. It's kind of why it's great. You can deep strike within 6 inches of an enemy unit instead of 9 inches, meaning you'd be able to charge immediately after deep striking. This alone makes this army great, and it causes the army to be pretty great. The 4 enhancements are a bit odd, as each one can only attach on a specific sub-faction, and add the fact that each one has a different value, it feels a bit strange. Let's talk about them real quick. The most expensive at 30 points goes to Nurgle. The Endless Gift gives the Nurgle character a 5+ Feel No Pain, being bettered to a 4+ in Shadows of Chaos Zone. Any sort of Feel No Pain is great, especially one that doesn't have limits to the type of damage like chaplains have. With 25 points, we've got the Everstave for Zinj. This one gives ranged weapons for the bearer an extra 1 strength and 3 inches of range. In the shadows, both these numbers are doubled. Honestly, this is okay, especially for something like the Exalted Flamer, with their guarantee to hit. At 20 points for Khorne is, I'm gonna butcher that, Argath, the King of Blades. I hate that name. It gives a +1 to the bearer's strength and attack characteristics for the bearer's melee weapon. This doubles in the shadows. With melee in 10th edition, this is just okay at best, but not great in any situation. Melee weapons kinda lack for some reason in comparison to range. Slaanesh is the last at 15 points for Soul Stealer. This one essentially vampires the Daemon. If that Daemon kills an enemy model with a melee attack, you roll a d6, adding 1 to that roll if in the shadows. On a 4+, the bearer regains 1 wound. This isn't great, but Slaanesh is pretty heavy in the melee, so go for it. We've also got 6 stratagems. These are surprisingly simple, actually. Corrupt Real Space can be used at the start of any command phase, and essentially forces an objective marker to be under your control until the enemy meets the control requirements. Within 6 inches is considered within the Shadow of Chaos. Draught of Terror can be used during your shooting or fight phase on a unit that has yet to be selected. It gives each weapon in that group used in that phase an extra 1 armor penetration. If the targets of the weapon attacks are battle shocked, you can reroll wounds. A good reason for that battle shock thing in the Shadow of Chaos army rule. Warp Surge is used during your charge phase. It lets the unit selected be able to charge in the move they advanced in. Pretty standard, no opinion here. Denizens of the Warp can be used in the movement phase. It lets you deep strike a unit within 3 inches of an enemy unit, but they can't charge during that turn. Still pretty fantastic for flamers. The Realm of Chaos can be used at the end of your enemy's turn, and it lets you pull up to 2 units from the battlefield and put them back into reserves to be deep strike during your next move phase. These sort of stratagems are sort of hilarious to me. I love them, despite the fact that I probably never use it. Demonic Invulnerability is used during your opponent's shooting phase, right after your opponent selects a target. It essentially lets you reroll invuln saves of 1, which really sucks. Keep in mind that most Daemons don't have armor saves, but almost all, if not all, have invuln saves. The fact that you have to use this before rolling the saves is what bothers me though. So you have no idea if you actually need it or not. Daemons are a high tier army right now. I don't know what happened, but since the recent data slate changes, teleportation armies have become pretty powerful. Why? I ain't got a clue. I guess the ability to pop in and out does allow repositioning and flanking and surrounding options, but unless everyone in the army is capable of moving exactly where they want, it gets a bit questionable. I don't really understand how this is doing so well in competitions right now, but maybe it's a competitive only thing, which I've never been in a competitive game, just a casual. But that's really all I got. Have a pretzel, Belly.
Wait, I thought I couldn't have your snacks.
You can't, Nub, but I like Belly.
Belly! Nom 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 nom.
That's right, Belly. Now shove off.